Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. First and foremost, I do not, enjoy or revel or, you know, I don't want anyone to get the viewpoint that I'm happy people are getting laid off. I am unhappy that people are getting laid off. I don't care about what your political viewpoint is. Vice, BuzzFeed, The Washington Post, there are other layoffs. We'll get to that in a second. But first and foremost, I am not like a great many the wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats who revel, who rejoice in the suffering of others, who happen to have a different viewpoint. Just because somebody has a different viewpoint than me at Vice or The Washington Post, I don't want them to lose their jobs. But it's happening, and I'll tell you why. In a couple of seconds, you'll hear from former President Donald Trump versus the media. You will hear from future President Donald Trump's attorney. You will hear and watch how the media has treated Trump. I will explain in about 30 to 40 seconds before you see President Trump versus the media and how they've treated him, and we'll compare that also to how they treat Biden. I will explain in about 30 to 40 seconds right now why Vice and BuzzFeed and the Washington Post and others are laying off people. Okay, the reason is when everyone dislikes Trump, when everyone in media has devoted their lives, when every editor at these publications will only publish stories that vilify and demonize Donald Trump and people who vote for Trump, 80 million Americans, you have essentially written off half of the country. That is, you have written off half of the U.S. market in terms of media. Donald Trump, initially, they say, got billions in free media coverage, but it was really negative media coverage. Now he's going to get billions in free media coverage in a very bizarre manner by not having the negative media. So he'll save the billions of dollars. Let's put it this way. Democrats, the Democratic Party will not have an endless supply, an endless stream of free political advertising the more that these publications go under. Again, I am not happy that they've gone under. You'll hear from President Trump in a second, and you'll see why they've gone under based on his interactions. But every single night that Jimmy Kimmel or Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, or John Oliver, or Saturday Night Live, whatever, every single night that they vilify and demonize and disparage and mock and denigrate Trump, they are providing free political advertising to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars a year. That goes for all of Hollywood as well. That goes for, publications like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, BuzzFeed, Vice, Mother Jones, The Nation, New Yorker, New York Magazine. These are all anti-Trump. These are all publications, Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Esquire. These are all publications with the same exact message. In order to keep your publication alive in 2024, you're going to have one pro-Trump, at least one pro-Trump journalist or writer at the Washington Post or the Atlantic or the Daily Beast or, BuzzFeed and Vice. They're no longer around now, essentially. But the Washington Post, the New York Times, and all of these, Rolling Stone, and eventually you're going to likely see the same type of situation that we see with Vice and BuzzFeed. These publications have to get at least one or two pro-Trump writers or journalists or editors. They have to publish some stories because that are favorable to Trump. This way, you actually exist in a media landscape that is crumbling, giving the future president, because he'll win in 24, billions of dollars in media coverage, or let's say saving him billions of negative media coverage, which essentially is giving them free money. I'll explain further through. I mean, I'm getting bogged down in trying to explain to you, but hit subscribe. Let's watch this interaction with 60 Minutes, and we'll get to exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, hit subscribe if you're new to this channel.
That your tweets and your name calling are turning people off.
No, I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't have social media.
Well,
but the media is fake. And frankly, if I didn't have social media, I'd have no way of getting out my voice.
Do you know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe you.
I don't have to discredit you.
But that's what you
You've
told me.
You've discredited yourself.
You know, I didn't want to have this kind of angry.
Of course you did.
No, I didn't.
Of course you did.
No, I didn't.
Well, then you brought up a lot of subjects that
Well, I said I'm going to ask you tough
up.
questions.
They were inappropriately brought up right from the beginning. No, your first question was, this is going to be tough questions.
Why?
You don't ask Joe Biden. I saw your interview with Joe, the interview with Joe Biden.
I never did a Joe Biden interview.
The interview, 60 Minutes. I see Joe Biden giving softball after softball. I've seen all of his interviews. He's never been asked a question that's hard.
Okay, but forget him for a minute.
No, but you start with me.
You're president. And
excuse me, Leslie, you started with me. Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk. It's no way to talk.
Leslie, one second.
At this point,
So you're going to, here's the issue, okay? And Paul Bartlett, thank you to my super chat, thank you. Here's the problem, okay? Trump is getting billions of dollars of negative media coverage that serve primarily as political advertising in the form of pro-Democratic Party or liberal viewpoints. So you are not allowed to give billions of dollars according to campaign finance laws. But what late night comedians do and talk shows and media outlets, what they say is, well, this is the First Amendment. Well, it's not the First Amendment, for example, if you communicate or coordinate with Democrats or the Democratic Party or political operatives, which seems to be the case. Okay, so there seems to be, it's very likely that billions of dollars every single year through editors, likely through editors at these publications, whether it's the Atlantic or the Washington Post or the New York Times or BuzzFeed or well, the Steele dossier was published through BuzzFeed, but through BuzzFeed or Vice or Rolling Stone, these publications oftentimes are the same parent company. But there's a distinct political viewpoint and political party that's being propped up. All of these publications and cable stations, whether it's MSNBC and CNN or The Atlantic, or you have Vice or BuzzFeed now, or late night comedians, every single day give billions and billions and every single month, let's say, or year, give billions and billions in free political advertising to the Democratic Party. Very likely because they coordinate in some manner, very likely, almost certainly, with Democratic Party operatives or congressmen or staff or congresswomen or somebody within the DNC. We know through the DNC emails long ago that was the case in many examples. And so that's against campaign finance laws. They're breaking campaign finance laws by in concert every single day, almost virtually all of American media propping up one political party at the expense of Trump. And it's a concerted, very laser-like focus, well-defined effort to destroy and demean and disparage Trump. I don't want anyone to lose their jobs. and hit subscribe to this channel right now. If you're at BuzzFeed or if you're at Vice, I don't want you to lose your job. Even though I like Trump, I'm voting for Trump. I want record low poverty, which is what we had in 2019, record highs in household median income. I want an anti-war president who brings home Americans. The Doha Agreement was completely botched by Biden, and it ended America's longest-running counterinsurgency conflict that Biden and Kerry and Clinton and Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld got us into forever as a country. I want the first president to step foot in North Korea, Trump was. Trump allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Made the funding permanent. Okay? We had interest rates at 3% for mortgages? It's now 7 to 8% for mortgages. Your mortgage payments every month are double under Biden than they are under Trump. And so I don't want anyone to be laid off from Vice or BuzzFeed. Okay, that doesn't bring me happiness the way you saw the past 5-6 years. Whenever something negative would happen, morally superior liberals would rejoice in seeing others with a different viewpoint suffer. I don't want anyone to suffer, left, right. If you're an American or anywhere around the world, in Australia, Paul Bartlett, I love you, thank you. Anywhere, to my super chat around the world, thank you. I don't want to see you suffer, lose your job, because it's tough out there. Bidenomics is tough. Interest rates are through the roof, barely keeping inflation at bay. But he's essentially getting billions now in not having the billions thrown at him in free political advertising. So he's saving, let's say, billions of dollars. Okay, he's getting free money by not having that enormous sum leveled at him as these publications go under. And then he has the $10 billion from the merger. So let's listen to some more of what he has to contend with.
The intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, and by the way, we just found out I was coming down. Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. It was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. Sure. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen.
Sir, since you're attacking us, can you give us a question?
Go ahead.
No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
since you are attacking our news organization,
can
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization.
Can you give us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir,
Quiet.
Quiet. Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Can you state categorically,
she's asking a question. Don't
Mr.
be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm
Can
not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
So the man was president-elect. The man was president-elect. Okay? And already BuzzFeed had published the Steele dossier. Now BuzzFeed and Vice and others are going bankrupt or laying off people. What was the purpose of this? How, if you're an editor at BuzzFeed or Vice or other publications, what was the purpose of publishing, like, for example, in BuzzFeed's case, the Steele dossier, a completely fake and phony document meant to divide Americans? And now, years later, the publication is no longer in business, essentially. What was the objective? And if you have CNN, MSNBC, The Atlantic, Mother Jones, The Nation, the Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Esquire, New York Times, LA Times, every Atlanta Journal-Constitution, every single publication and newspaper, Arizona Republic, you have almost every single publication saying the exact same things. Can you maybe, just maybe, see the writing on the wall if you're these publications and don't want to end up like Vice and BuzzFeed? Maybe you should get one pro-Trump editor, one pro-Trump reporter or journalist, because every single reporter lies by omission, or journalist lies by omission, or publication lies by omission to help the Democratic Party. It's not about truth. It's about a tiny lie. It's a grandiose lie by omission where you're given only the truth or facts that further the Democratic Party's viewpoint. But you don't do that for Trump. In fact, you go overboard for Trump, against Trump, to disparage him and even publish a completely fake and absurd dossier. Kevin Duder, Paul Bartlett even suggested, thank you. Kevin, thank you. So let's continue. What I'm trying to say is he's getting now every single time Trump essentially bankrupts a publication, he gets billions not sent his way, which means he's saved billions of dollars or hundreds of millions that he has to spend, and he evades or circumvents billions leveled at him in terms of negative media. So it's a zero-sum game. If a publication goes out of business, the Democratic Party loses hundreds of millions in free political advertising, and Trump gains hundreds of millions of dollars in money that he would have had to have spent defending himself from nonsense, or simply he doesn't have to now deal with hundreds of millions leveled at him in terms of political advertising. American journalism is turned into public relations and political advertising for the Democratic Party. That's why these publications are going under. They're giving billions in free political advertising, essentially. They're essentially giving billions in free political advertising. It can't just be about truth when you have half the country who wants Trump. Trump is up, and we had an amazing economy and amazing foreign policy. We didn't have the catastrophe. These countries were not getting invaded while Trump was in office. They are now with Biden. More people are losing their lives at the border with Biden. And so you have a situation where media is very slow to learn that if you don't hire pro-Trump editors or journalists, or if you don't at least give half the population something. Can the Washington Post write one good op-ed or publish one good op-ed in favor of Trump? God forbid. He's going to win anyway. He's going to win anyway in 24. I mean, the only thing you're doing is sealing the fate of your publication. And the writing is on the wall. Why do you think the LA Times and Washington Post and BuzzFeed and Vice and all of these publications are laying off people? It's not about a changing landscape. It's about a singular, venomous, insidious message that Trump is the end of the universe. But if everyone is saying the same thing, what differentiates CNN from MSNBC, from The Atlantic, from Vice, from BuzzFeed? I mean, if you're just getting negative Trump coverage, you can go anywhere. How about catering to, I don't know, Trump supporters, Trump voters, who are half the population, who are also more young, and there's more people of color who love Trump, and more young people who love Trump, and Trump is gaining steam in every demographic group, and soon, and if you're watching, you probably lost friends because you voted for Trump. I lost lifelong friends. They disowned me. Eventually, very soon, it'll be very cool, and everyone will want to vote Trump. It'll be like the cool thing. Not just the rebellious thing, but actually like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm just going to vote Trump. I'm going to be myself. It won't be this group thing with the most apoplectic, virtually hysterical, morally superior liberal Democrats shouting and ruining Thanksgiving dinners and lunches and get-togethers and reunions. Trump is that? It's like, and he's going to win in 24. So not only are publications going under now, not only have you ruined Thanksgiving dinner with, yelling at your pro-Trump family, he's still going to win. What good have you done? I mean, it's okay to, like, the dumbest philosophy out there is, oh, there's no compromise when it comes to values. Well, then go visit the border and see how many people, human beings, are losing their lives now under Biden. Far more than Trump. Poverty is up under Biden. We have all these horrible quagmires in terms of foreign policy. What have you gained under Biden? What? I want to know. It's double the mortgage. Was Trump that evil that you have to pay double the mortgage now? Your mortgage payments are double because interest rates are through the roof. Kevin, thank you for becoming a member. Good fellas. Man, he's learned this from... Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Let's go ahead and watch Trump. Let's watch another. Okay, so.
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in
Not
this
at all.
election
No, not
to
at all.
try to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrant...
So he literally stated, we need immigrants, and that will never be reported, for example. That'll never be reported. So he says he loves immigrants. He wants them to come through a process, but that's never reported.
From Hollywood. These were people, this was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big
the rest
fan of
us.
yours either. So
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said Democrats would unleash a wave of violent crime that endangers families everywhere. Why are you pitting Americans? Why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
Peter, what are you trying to be him?
No,
Peter,
I'm just asking the question.
Let me just tell you.
Why are you pitting Americans against one another as they actively accuse Trump of being an operative of another country, which was complete nonsense? Complete and utter nonsense. Patricia, hello, thank you. The job of these cable companies, cable stations and corporations and publications is only to pit people against voters for Trump. It's only to get as many people to despise and demean Trump as possible. Go and wear, I mean, I don't think you should, but if anyone disagrees with me, hypothetically, I'm not saying anyone do this, but what do you think would happen if somebody wore a Make America Great Again hat in Portland or Seattle or parts of Los Angeles or Manhattan or Brooklyn? Manhattan, maybe nothing, but Brooklyn, or the most liberal states, the most liberal cities, the most left-leaning cities. What do you think would take place? Now go to any place in South Carolina or Alabama and wear a Biden hat. Nobody will care. Nobody will care. The people who are the most apoplectic and angry with the most vitriol are Democrats when they hear the word Trump. They get this Pavlovian response. It's like they start like salivating. It's a visceral reaction to the word Trump. They can't even stand the name the phrase "Make America Great Again," and that's because of 24/7, nonstop, never-ending negative news coverage. And these publications now are going under. And that's giving Trump billions in free, that's saving Trump billions of dollars that he has to contend with in political advertising. Democrats get billions every year in political advertising. Now Trump is essentially getting free money because he doesn't have to shell out the money to combat the billions. So he's saving billions of dollars. Because now you have these publications and you have viewership is at an all-time low for a lot of these stations. A lot of readership is at an all-time low for a lot of these publications. These publications are going under, and it's almost as if Trump is doing it himself. He's bankrupting them, but really they're doing it themselves with the most apoplectic, hysterical coverage of Trump. How about hiring one Trump supporter at the Washington Post? Your viewership, the subscribers at the Washington Post would go up 25% in a week if you hired one pro-Trump writer, one op-ed in favor of Trump. I mean, one op-ed a week in favor of Trump. My God, the subscriber base would go up by 25% immediately. Thank you. Here's free business advice. Let's continue.
Costa. Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if you could comment on this disconnect that we seem to have in this country where you are presenting information about what's happening at the border, calling it an invasion, talking about women with duct tape. Reporting out there, there's a lot of crime data out there. There's a lot of Department of Homeland Security data out there that shows border crossings at a near record low. That shows us, but it's still undocumented immigrants.
So crossings were at a record low when Trump was in office. You can go back and see crossings were at a record low. And then CNN and others said that Trump was creating a controversy, a crisis. Fast forward 5 years, and now Democrats say, how come Trump and Republicans won't fund our border deal? Oh, well, suddenly there's a crisis now because, again, you didn't listen to Trump. Had you listened to Trump about pipelines, about the border, about a whole bunch of things, about inflation, excuse me, we wouldn't have these problems.
Crime at lower levels. That shows undocumented criminals or undocumented immigrants committing crime at lower levels than native-born Americans. What do you say?
That stat. Really believe that?
What do you? Well,
take a look at our federal prisons.
I believe in facts and statistics and data.
Okay, more quick. Let's go.
Let me just ask you this: what do you say to your critics who say that you are creating a national emergency?
So if Jim Acosta believes in facts and statistics and data, then it is a fact in 2019 we had record low poverty, record highs in household median income, inflation at record lows, interest rates at record lows, unemployment at record lows with real wages up. So if you believe in facts and statistics, then you're going to vote for Trump because the facts and the data and the numbers show that the economy was infinitely better than it is now.
That you're concocting a national emergency here in order to get your wall because you couldn't get it through other ways.
Moms, what do you think? Do you think I'm creating something? Ask these incredible women who lost their daughters and their sons. Okay? Because your question is a very political question because you have an agenda. You're CNN. You're fake news. You have an agenda. The numbers that you gave are wrong. Take a look at our federal prison population.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, for a presidency with a president who has the luxury of not having to contend with performance artists and a wild and rabid press. Now enjoy the calm, serene, orderly press conference that President Biden is lucky to have. This is how the press and deals with a Democratic president. Now enjoy the calm and serene, and enjoy the hilarious responses, the non-responses from our commander-in-chief.
Special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's
your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed.
What does it matter if you pass legislation? Who cares about that? Why is that an accomplishment? Is it good legislation? Is it good legislation? What does it matter? Why would that matter? Why would passing legislation when you have the House and Senate be a big deal? Furthermore, look at the difference. They let him speak. They don't shout. They don't give him these lectures on morality. Let's continue.
How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Mr. President,
for criminal liability today. Do you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me but my staff.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that, guys? Why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the report that
he did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President,
Let me answer your question.
Okay, so this has changed his okay, so Awake Canadian, thank you. To my super chat, thank you so much. So what took place, ladies and gentlemen, what you saw with Biden was much, much better than what you saw with Trump, okay? Just in terms, even though it was about a contentious topic, his memory. But let me explain something to you. I have been telling you for a long time that Hillary Clinton, Madam Secretary, is going to replace Biden. Long before anyone talked about replacing Biden, I think that Hillary Clinton is the only choice Democrats have. She's the only person who could raise the money. She could possibly win. I think that Trump will win. I also think there's going to be a terrible market crash from now until November. Hit subscribe, by the way, if you're new to this channel. Everything that I've been saying for years is now coming to fruition. And I've also told I told the world, I said, if you continue to focus only on disparaging and demeaning Trump, publications are going to go under. And now we're seeing publications. And so in 2016, they say he got billions in free advertising. In 2024, he's getting billions in free advertising. Or I should say he's getting billions of dollars he's saving billions or hundreds of millions, which will turn out to be billions, in free political advertising for the Democratic Party that he has to contend with. So he no longer has to contend with free political advertising the more these big publications go under. And I don't want people to go under. I don't want anyone at Vice or BuzzFeed or anywhere to lose their job. But if you just had one pro-Trump writer, if you just had one journalist explaining that Trump is actually doing a good job with the economy, a good job with foreign policy, Trump is, gave more money to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever, doing a lot of good things, okay? If there was that writer at BuzzFeed or editor at BuzzFeed or at Vice, they would be in business. Ellie, thank you. They would be in business. So Trump doesn't have to contend now with billions in free political advertising for the Democratic Party, because all of these publications that provide the billions in free political ads through what they call journalism are now going under, unfortunately. I say unfortunately only because I don't want people to lose their jobs. It's billions in free money for Trump because he's had to contend. Here's the thing. Trump is not going, he's not only going after the Democratic Party, he's competing with media. Media and the Democratic Party are one. Let's go ahead and let's listen really quickly to Trump's lawyer, because Trump's lawyer is part of his, let's say, media or media offensive. So instead of having publications defending like Biden and Democrats, and they have publications and cable stations and Hollywood and late night defending them every single second of the day, Trump has his attorney. So here you have Alina Habba, who's fantastic. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel.
You asked me that question. No, I'm not having any second thoughts about representing President Trump. It is the proudest thing I could ever do. What I am having second thoughts about is the license that I stand here with that the people in there are supposed to have. I have not spoken because I respect my ethics while I'm on trial. But let me now speak about what has happened. I have sat on trial after trial for months in this state, the state of New York. Attorney General Letitia James, and now this. Weeks. Why? Because President Trump is leading in the polls, and now we see what you get in New York. So don't get it twisted, whoever asked me that question. I am so proud to stand with President Trump. But I am not proud to stand with what I saw in that courtroom. I'm not finished. Let me just finish and I'll take questions, please. before I walked into court. That judge decided that every single defense President Trump had, we were not allowed to raise in front of the jury. It is in writing, and I encourage the journalists, the real journalists, to take the minute to look at his orders. There was no proof. And I couldn't prove that she didn't bring in the dress. There was no DNA. There was no expert. My expert.
So Trump doesn't have anything but his social media or his attorney or his voice. His voice is the only thing he has. So I just gave you I thought that was about the fraud trial. I'm not, so I stopped that before we got into too much of a discussion about the other trial. Basically, Trump could lose $500 trillion in New York, and he'd be able to pay that tomorrow. The one thing Trump can do very easily is make money. So he had a $10 billion merger that I talked about yesterday that the SEC approved. Okay, a valuation that eventually would reach $10 billion. And I'm trying to explain, I can't give the exact estimate. In 2016, there were articles saying Trump wrote $5 billion in free media. Okay, it was negative press. They tried to say, well, he got free media, and it was actually media that tried desperately to destroy Trump. The media viewed it as free publicity. When in reality, the negative press against Trump is, if they say billions in free money, it's actually really billions in free political advertising for the Democratic Party. When you have almost every single publication, late night comedian, Saturday Night Live, all of Hollywood, social media algorithms converging in a unanimous, simultaneous, singular manner to oppose Trump, the Democratic Party benefits to the tune of billions of dollars in free political advertising. That's a campaign finance violation, and they're breaking campaign finance laws if there's any coordination, if there's any if possibly any producer or director or writer or comedian for these late night shows possibly interact with anyone linked to the Democratic Party, that could be a major campaign finance violation. Okay? To the tune of billions of dollars. If they estimated that Trump got $5 billion in free media in 2016, how many billions of dollars since 2016 have media given in the form of free political advertising to the Democratic Party? If every single day you have virtually every publication in the country and cable station in the country and virtually every major journalist and reporter and editor publishing stories detrimental to Trump and bolstering the Democratic Party, then you have the Democratic Party gaining billions upon billions in free political advertising masquerading as journalism, potentially. And so if you have all of these media outlets going under now because they have just lost viewership or subscribers or readership because people don't want to read the 1 billionth story about how Trump is the next totalitarian monster, Trump doesn't have to spend the money to defend himself from the nonsense. The Democrats don't get the hundreds of millions or billions in free advertising. It's essentially free money into Trump's campaign because it's less of the most apoplectic media coverage that he has to deal with, and that is essentially free political advertising. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly or effectively, but that's what's taking place. These corporations are now going under, and they're going under because there's no longer a need for 50 or 60, 70 publications to do the same thing every single day, which is disparage Trump. They actually should hire pro-Trump reporters or editors. But here, this is an example of what Trump had to deal with. This is another example.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, it was just a follow-up of what I just asked you, sir.
Listen, you ready? We have the president of Finland. Ask him a question.
I have one for him. I just wanted to follow up on the one that I asked you. Which
did you hear
what
me?
Did you want?
Did you hear me?
Yes,
ask
sir.
him a question.
I will, but
I've given you a long answer. Ask this gentleman a question. Don't be rude.
No, sir, I don't want to be rude. I just wanted you to have a chance to answer the question that I asked you.
I've answered everything. It's a whole hoax. And you know who's playing into the hoax? People like you and the fake news media that we have in this country. And I say in many cases, the corrupt media, because you're corrupt. Much of the media in this country is not just fake, it's corrupt. And you have some very fine people, too. Great journalists, great reporters. But to a large extent, it's corrupt and it's fake. Ask the president of Finland a question, please.
My second question to you, sir, is the WTO ruled today in favor of the United States, saying that the United States can now impose tariffs on European goods because of illegal subsidies against Airbus.
It was a big win for the United States, right?
It was.
You never had wins with other presidents, did you? But we're having a lot of wins at the WTO
this was
since
a
I
case
became
that started, I think, 10 or 15 years ago.
Okay.
But
excuse me. Your wins are now because they think I don't like the WTO and they want to make sure I'm happy. Because all of those countries were ripping off the United States for many years. They know that I'm wise to it. We've had a lot of wins. This was a $7 billion win. Not bad.
But I think the question is for...
So, there you have it. I mean, if there's a concerted effort, ladies and gentlemen, if there's a concerted effort, the issue is, why is there a concerted effort by almost every publication in this country to disparage and demean Trump? Why has anybody ever asked why all of late night, why every comedian, why John Oliver wants to give $1 million to pay Clarence Thomas $1 million not to be justice, but he would never do that with Justice Kagan or Justice Sotomayor or Justice Jackson? And so you're continually you're continually trying to convince the American public that there's only one viewpoint that's acceptable in polite society. When in the reality is you have 70 to 80 million Americans voting for Trump. And he's up in the polls. He's going to regain the Oval Office. And so what are media outlets going to do? Continue with the same Steele dossiers that bankrupted them? How about the Washington Post or the New York Times hiring one pro-Trump journalist or editor? One person who voted for Trump. How about Rolling Stone or Vanity Fair or Esquire hiring one young journalist that actually supports Donald Trump? Oh my God, would that be blasphemy? Would that be an abomination? Because you would save your publication. Okay? Why read an anti-Trump article in any of these publications when all of them are saying the same thing all the time? You're not catering. You've ignored half the population. You've ignored half of the American media market by catering to the Democratic Party and giving the Democratic Party free political advertising. Granted, there's about 4 or 5 or 6 major media companies that control all of these publications, or that own these publications. But then why don't these major media companies, evolve? And the thing is, it's like, there are a lot of great reasons to vote for Trump. There are, if you are of a certain, if you're a liberal, there's some great reasons to vote for Biden. if you're more middle of the road or conservative or just independent in terms of, if you want a less militant foreign policy, for example, there are great reasons to vote for Donald Trump. There used to be a media that looked at things from the vantage point of, well, you know what, whoever wins doesn't really matter. Now it's just media is an extension of the Democratic Party. Media have given the Democrats essentially free political advertising masquerading as journalism, which if these publications or cable stations or late night comedy shows communicated or coordinated in any way with Democrats, which almost certainly they do in some manner, they're breaking campaign finance laws to the tune of billions and billions in free political advertising that Trump doesn't have to contend with anymore, because that's the whole point of this live stream. They're losing, they're going bankrupt trying to destroy Trump. It's becoming their own undoing. Trump is like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Yet again, Trump manages to get billions and billions of dollars in free money. Unfortunately, because the publications that gave free political advertising in the form of journalism are now no longer around, and they're slowly shutting their doors, unfortunately. I don't want anyone to lose their jobs. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very, very much for tuning in. I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. God bless you all. If you're new to this channel, hit subscribe right now. Again, I don't, and I'll be here at 10 p.m. Eastern, everybody. I don't want anyone to lose their jobs. I don't revel or rejoice or enjoy hearing that BuzzFeed or Vice are going under, even though I disagree with them politically. But what would have saved them and what will save the Washington Post and other publications is hire a pro-Trump journalist and editor.